meeting of the 21 calendar year. And with that, I'll invite Pastor Dunn, if you will, to come and lead us in our invocation. And I may have promoted you. I don't know. Do you go by pastor?
It's all good.
He's deserving.
Let us pray. Father, we're so thankful and so grateful just for a day we've never seen before. And God, you told us to rejoice and be glad in this day. And God, we give your name the glory and the honor. God, we just thank you for your grace. We thank you for your mercy. God, we just thank you, Lord, for just your presence, Lord, that's going to be in this place today. God, I pray as these commissioners, Lord, as each and every one of them, Lord, I pray that as they decide to conduct this business tonight, I pray you would give them understanding. I pray, God, you would give them guidance, and God, give them wisdom beyond their years, Lord. And God, I just pray that you would help them, Lord, to work together in unity, Lord. We thank you for this great city that we are a part of, Lord. And we just thank you, Lord, for how you've blessed us, how you've touched us, Lord. And even during this time of this season, Lord, I just pray that you would bless us, Lord, to take a moment and just reflect on family. Reflect on the provisions that you have given us and reflect on life. And God, we take it for granted so much, but God, we just thank you for life tonight. And we thank you, Lord, that you would bless our city, Lord, and bless us as they conduct this meeting today. Let your will be done, and we'll give your name the praise, the glory, and the honor in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. You turn and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, your first order of business is consideration of the minutes from your meeting held on Thursday, December the 2nd.
Commission, are there modifications or a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Your next order of business is to invite forward a very special guest and for the Board of Commissioners to consider granting special air rights usage over the city on December the 24th and the 25th as requested by one S. Claus. Is the petitioner present?
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas, Commissioners and Mayor. It is so good to be here. I actually have two reasons this year. I'm on a very special mission for the mayor of the North Pole. She has heard about Mr. Peterson and that he is retiring from your great city. And so, with all the great things that she's heard, the great way that he has managed Johnson City for these many years, Mr. Peterson, the mayor of the North Pole, would like to extend a personal invitation to apply for our open city manager position.
Santa, I'm sorry. Don't you keep the naughty and nice list?
I do. But the mayor does not have access. Only Santa Claus. And we do have a 401k, dental, vision, and a very, very cold refrigerator. So
Now we're talking.
So we would love to have you as the next city manager of the North Pole. So keep that in mind as you weigh the next steps. And congratulations for your long and great career, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Santa. I certainly appreciate it.
But I am here on very important business. As many of you may know, Santa Claus flies in on Christmas Eve to bring little boys and girls their gifts. So I humbly ask that you would clear the airspace for Santa and his reindeer on the 24th of December and the 25th of December.
Mayor, I
Commission?
make a motion that we clear the airspace for Santa Claus. And Mrs. Claus, will she be traveling with you this year?
She will not. We can only have one sleigh driver, and if Mrs. Claus is there, it's hard to do. So me and the elves will be there.
I withdraw my question.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Is Mrs. Claus the mayor of the North Pole, or is it different?
She is the mayor.
Okay, all right. We have a motion and a second. We'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
And I do understand too, Santa, that they're really in need of elves at the
They
North
are
Pole,
in need
that,
of elves, so-
Mr. Peterson would have to start a recruiting project the minute he gets there.
He would. The shortage of
getting
elves
better.
is felt all over the North Pole. Just like in Johnson City, there's so many things to do and so little people to do them. So that will be your first great project, is recruitment, which you've done a great job, we've heard before, and that's mainly why Mrs. Claus has decided you should be city manager.
You should listen to Mrs. Claus so that you're successful on your adventures on the 24th and 25th. And I've got a little buddy over here I think might make the first elf.
Oh! He's on one of the list. No.
I'm glad I'm not on his list.
Yeah, he's on one of the lists, that elf right there. So, but we appreciate your offer of that elf. Please, I thank you, the citizens of Johnson City, for allowing me to fly over your great town and have a Merry Christmas to you all.
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas! Oh, 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 Merry Christmas!
Mayor, your next order of business is presentation of a retirement resolution to our buddy Marianne. Marianne, come on up here, please, ma'am.
Thank you for clarifying. So Marianne, this proclamation comes to you from the commission. Whereas Johnson City resident Marianne Kinch was first employed by the Johnson City Parks and Recreation Department on the 1st of August, 1991 as the Cultural Arts Director, developing arts programs for each of the city's recreation centers. And whereas in recognition of her creative abilities and versatility in handling a variety of projects, Marianne Kinch was subsequently promoted to the position of marketing and events manager for the department, developing all printed marketing and promotional materials for various programs and events in the Parks and Recreation Department. Whereas over the years, she coordinated, sponsored, developed, and/or supported a cross-section of events throughout the park system, including Lakeside Cinema, Freaky Forest at Rotary Park, the Johnson City Dog Park at Willow Springs Park, the annual Dragon Boat events, the Lakeside Concert Series, the Birch Street Music Series, working with a variety of community groups to assure program participation and success. Whereas Marianne Kinch is further recognized for her civic engagement in this community, serving over the years on a variety of community boards, including the United Way of Washington County, the Johnson City Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Johnson City Washington County Animal Control Board, the Boone Lake Association, Girls Inc., liaison to the dog park, amongst many other endeavors in volunteerism. Whereas in recognition of her unselfish and dedicated service, Marianne Kinch was also inducted into the Johnson City Parks and Recreation Department's Wall of Fame. Now therefore be it resolved that the Johnson City Board of Commissioners officially honors and congratulates Marianne Kinch upon her retirement from the city of Johnson City on the 3rd of January 2022 after 30-year career serving the citizens of this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Peterson, do you want the microphone?
Sure. Marianne and I started about the same time. Yes. And you have always been the person in Parks and Rec. that when something needed to be done, he called Marianne. No need to call Lonnie, no need to call Tom or James, call Marianne, because it'd get done right. There weren't any questions about it. And when other people had made a mess of things, call Marianne and she'd clean it up, and nobody would ever know that we had a mess to start with. And my point here is you have been such a loyal, dedicated, hardworking employee that you really have been the gold standard for the model of what we would hope all of our employees would be. I mean, there have been, and James knows more than I, there have been thousands of hours that you have worked way beyond what anybody else did or when anybody else knew it. Midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, helping the boys drag ball fields or picking up trash from an event. I mean, you've been called the program manager and the communications manager and all those other titles, but you're really the go-to it. And I will forever be grateful for all the years of hard work that you've put in and the great ideas that you've had for programming to keep kids involved in things. And you really are the gold standard for what we would hope that all of us would be as employees to the city and for a civil servant to the people that we work for. I'm gonna miss you. All right.
Very tough to follow that one. Yeah, a lot of hours, Pete, that you don't even know about, and thank goodness you don't. And Marianne did have other titles. I'm not sure they were official. If you would ask our maintenance department or some of those gentlemen that set up for the concert series that she had such a passion for. Marianne, I just want to wish you well in your retirement. The door is open. If you decide to come back and work part-time or volunteer, you're more than welcome, and thank you for 30 wonderful years.
You've heard it all before, but Marianne Kinch, you are the Kinchiest, that's for sure. But jokes aside, when Pete placed me in the position of more or less Parks and Recreation Director for 3.5 years, we did not have assistant Park and Rec directors at the time. And Marianne was the go-to person. I went to her for a variety of things that nobody else was assigned at the time. And without complaint, without any negative connotation, she jumped right into it. And just a few things today, when you go down the lakefront, most people don't know this, and again, I compliment Pete Peterson for his support, but the lakefront, if you remember, was dark, gravel road, kind of rough to get down, go down there today, completely lit, paved, striped, whole different environment than what it was back in 2007, 2008. So thank you for your when we have this logo, go all out, you went all out. We appreciate you very much. We'll miss you. God bless you.
Hold on. Up. Not, I'm sorry, Mr. Peterson is who I'm reining back in. Yeah, no, you'd be welcome back, but no, he can't leave. That's so. Mr. Peterson, the next item on our agenda is a proclamation recognizing the retirement of one, I threatened to call you M. Dennis Peterson because we always knew when somebody didn't really know Mr. Peterson, they'd stand here and call him Dennis at the podium. So whereas Pete Peterson was first employed by the city on the 2nd of January 1991 as a building inspector, applying his knowledge and experience in construction to assist the Johnson City development community. And whereas he was subsequently promoted to become Assistant City Manager, Community Services in 1995, and after serving 13 months as Interim City Manager, was appointed to become Johnson City's 14th City Manager, effective the 1st of December 2005. Mr. Peterson proceeded to implement an ambitious capital improvement program that resulted in tremendous reinvestment in the public infrastructure of the city, including reconstruction and expansion of city school buildings, the renovation of the Freedom Hall Civic Center, the acquisition and development of the Tweetsie Trail, the acquisition and development of over 257 acres of land for public parks and open space, expansion and extension of water and wastewater infrastructure, expansion of the fire department, development of the Langston Center and the Memorial Park Community Center, development of Founders Park and King Commons, which established significant event and public space in downtown, expansion of the annual street resurfacing. Put a period in this sentence. Expansion of the annual street resurfacing program, development of the new juvenile court building, support and investment in regional partnerships, including the ETSU Gatton School of Pharmacy, Aerospace Park, and the ETSU Martin Performing Arts Center, reinvestment in athletic fields, recreation areas, and construction of the Kermit Tipton Stadium, among other projects and programs. Whereas Pete Peterson has been recognized and honored for his leadership over the years as the 2010 Tennessee City Manager of the Year and the recipient of the 2017 Distinguished Alumni Award from his alma mater, East Tennessee State University. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Johnson City Board of Commissioners officially honors and congratulates Pete Peterson upon his retirement as Johnson City's longest-serving city manager, concluding a career of outstanding service to the city of Johnson City, its citizens, and the community. Thank you, Pete. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Stahl. I really can't be responsible for what he does.
Neither can I.
Pete, thank you, Mayor. But Pete, the resolution before you said something, longest-serving city manager, 17 years. It's quite an accomplishment. You do not achieve that without a lot of hard work. It's a 24-hour job. Most people don't realize the city manager's job in Johnson City. I started here as a college kid nearly 40 years ago, and I saw the city managers here over the years, and this has become a 24-hour job. We've grown 15,000 people in population since Pete became city manager. And how's that happen? By communication, by building relationships. And the relationships are not just relationships with the city commission, who he works with, past commissions who he's worked with, community leaders who he's worked with, regional leaders who he's worked with. It becomes also with state relationships. Pete's gone to Nashville many, many times over the years. And we wondered why he was going sometimes, because we thought, well, certainly he can't, be one person achieving, great things without a bunch of help. Well, he got a lot of help, but he also doggedly went to Nashville, built these relationships, knows the state legislators, knows the governor, knows the past governors, and these efforts have not gone unrecognized. In fact, our community has benefited from that tremendously over the years on a variety of projects we're not going to mention here. With that in mind, I'd like to present to you a certificate from the governor, a certificate of appreciation from Governor Lee for your many years of dedicated service to our state, our community, and our region. So with that in mind, thank you very much, and I know you're very well known in the state of Tennessee, and you're very well appreciated. So congratulations again, and Godspeed.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah. And I'm going to hand it over to James here.
Can I get you to do my eulogy when it comes time? You did a great job.
I have it written out already.
He's not joking. Pete, on behalf of Parks and Recreation, our staff considers you more than city manager, but a true friend to the recreation program. You've supported all the projects, as the mayor read off, and many, many more earlier. And it means a lot to the staff when they see your face come around their facilities, because they know that there's someone here that fully supports them. So on behalf of our department, we know you're going to have a lot of time on your hands. We wanted to give you something that you could track the time with. So we have a little token of appreciation. It says, in appreciation of City Manager Pete Peterson, friend of Johnson City Parks and Recreation, December 17th, 2021. So thank you very much for everything you've done.
Wow, that's quite a bit. Well, I guess first of all, I would like to say thank you to the present commission. It's been a pleasure working with each and every one of you, and to past commissions. I feel like we've done we've accomplished a lot. It's been a lot of fun. It's not been without its challenges, but I think that's what makes it more fun at the end of the day, to know that you can identify the challenges in front of you and overcome them, and have a group of people that you can work with. And what really makes it all come together is the fact that we've got such a great team of employees here that we can count on. They do a wonderful job beyond words. I mean, it's the finest group of folks I've ever worked with, and I'm very proud to have been able to serve with them and to serve the city of Johnson City. So on behalf of myself, a big thank you to each and every one of you, and to my family for putting up with my ill manner at times and being at work a lot and all those types of things. But they've certainly given me the opportunity to do what I've loved to do for the last 31 years, and I'm very appreciative of it. So thank you very much. It's been a good ride.
So this is probably where John Hunter would want to ask the question, who's your favorite commissioner?
You beat me to it. Pete, I think we'll probably have a few things to say. But as I was thinking about tonight,
Remember, there's children watching.
His.
so I've got a couple dad jokes.
Okay.
No, seriously though, I was trying to think about, what to say, and I was thinking about the few times, or the times that we get to speak on a personal level, and I think just about every time I look at you and I say, I don't see how or why you do what you do, and I would never want to do it. Getting to be close to the scene, you really get, or we've gotten to have a full appreciation of what you do, the commitment and the demand that it puts upon you and your family, and we appreciate that. And I'm honored that I've had the opportunity to serve with you and learn from you, and appreciative also that you're going to be around, living in Johnson City, and you can impart more wisdom on me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Pete, I recorded a message on your tape last night. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit hoarse. So you can watch that over and over again. But I meant every single word of it. I've been serving Johnson City for about 15 years, starting with school board, and you were the person who kind of helped guide me along at that time. It's pretty emotional tonight, guys. It really is, to have Marianne and Pete both. You started at the same time, you're leaving at the same time. But anyway, the exciting thing that I saw last night at your reception was the golf bag that the employees gave you. And so we hope to see you over at the golf course. You asked me if I can give you some lessons, and I absolutely will.
I need them.
But I want to thank you so much. And I think that kind of the neat thing is what's over your left shoulder there. When you look at the imagination of where we are as a city, you got it, man. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it.
I meant most of what I said in the video. No, what I said then, and I'll say again here, if you look at Johnson City over the last 30 years, if you can for a moment kind of rewind the video in your head and think back to what Johnson City looked like in 1990, 92, what did North Rhone look like? What did MedTech look like? What did People Street look like? What did Market Street look like? What did the Millennium Center look like? What did ETSU look like? What did the medical community look like? You don't have to look very far to see really transformational change over and over and over again all around town. And so for those of us that remember 1990, you go back and there's a tremendous amount that's changed, and Pete has had an instrumental role to play in all of that, and we thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate your friendship as much as getting to work with you, which is a hard thing to get rid of right now, the second part of that. But I'm glad you're sticking around. I don't think the people of Johnson City appreciate you as much as we should. Going to the municipal league meetings in Nashville and some of the other places we go, and talking to some of the other people, every time it was like, you're so lucky to have Pete Peterson there. And that was from people across the state that knew you. And it's like, gosh, you know, he's well-known everywhere else, but I don't know that we appreciate you as much as we should have. But I visited here 30 years ago, moved here 28 years ago, and the difference is night and day. So I know you've been working hard for all those times. We're going to miss you. So thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you, sir.
Pete, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 says, there is a season for everything, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck what is planted. It's a new season, Pete. Next meeting, I'll be sitting in this seat and I'll look down and you won't be there. It's a different season. 17 years in that seat is not normal. And so I do want to recognize your longevity. We look all throughout Johnson City. You should be able to see the fingerprints of Pete Peterson. You carry a lot of institutional knowledge that we're going to miss. But we believe that God's transitioned you into a greater season. This is not retirement. This is reassignment. So I got some food boxes for you to pack on next week.
I knew he was going to
I got
recruit
some
you.
deliveries I need you to make. All jokes aside, Pete, we appreciate you. May your legacy live on, and may those that come behind you pick up where you left off to keep making the city great. Thank you.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the very kind remarks. You know, I guess in leaving, my expectation of you all is to don't let up. Let this just be the beginning and build upon what we've done for the last 30 years. Might continue to make this the place that people want to live and play and raise their families. And as you all said, I'm going to be here. I've got young kids at the house that I'm really looking forward to spending more time with. I've got an elderly mother I can spend some time with. And I really look forward to continuing to be a quieter part of Johnson City and enjoy some time with some kids, and would challenge all of you all to continue to remember our days past. Our work is for those kids that follow us, and we need to make the city an opportunity for them to achieve all the success that we have. So let's keep working and make it a better place. I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I go home now?
Well, you know, you take a
I
break.
told you, Charlie.
In keeping with Mr. Peterson's comment, the next item on our agenda is a presentation from Launch Tennessee, which goes to the very point of efforts being put forward, not for us, but for the generations that will follow. And so, Heath,
Please, sir.
Thank you all very much for having me come tonight, and especially that I got to come on a night where there's been so much like pleasant and good tidings, and for Pete and for you guys. Really means
Santa
a lot
Claus.
for us to hear. It's warm for me, being a Johnson City homeboy here, to be able to hear that and see the respect and the appreciation for what we've been able to accomplish. I hope that what I'm sharing with you tonight represents the work we've done together and also the future that you guys have built the foundation for. It was about a year ago when we met for the first time to approve the original agreement together and see what we could do related to entrepreneurship and innovation. And I'm happy to come back today and be able to share what we've been able to do in the last 12 months and what the rest of this fiscal year looks like and beyond. You know, with our original presentation, what we said is we just want to be part of the growth of Johnson City, and how all of the things that Johnson City is being recognized literally nationally for, that entrepreneurship should be one of those things, and that the future of entrepreneurship and innovation, specifically in a rural setting, is something that Johnson City can own and lead the country in. And I think we're making a lot of progress, and I hope you'll agree. So let's talk about what we've seen accomplished in the last year, things that we thought would happen, and then also things that have happened that we weren't quite expecting. Originally, our agreement was to do a joint partnership between SyncSpace, the City of Johnson City, and Founders Forge. That was an agreement of $50,000 that would go to Founders Forge for the work that they do, a $75,000 commitment from the city and from SyncSpace to do the entrepreneurial work. In that, we've been able to have now 2 successful startup boot camps. One is just now kicking off, as well as some other events that have really brought our community together. It's been exciting to watch, and it's representing something really interesting that's coming. We're also seeing a lot of engagement from our academic partners, specifically ETSU, Milligan, Tusculum, and it goes on and on from there, that have really bought into what we're doing, and we see that as a really encouraging sign. Another thing that's happened is we've been able to have a real impact with ETSU. You know, I think when we met together, I told you that our total commitment together between the Launch Tennessee funding through SyncSpace, the partnership with the city, would represent around $150,000 a year, but we knew more would happen. We knew more would come. This past year, I'm happy to say that ETSU was inducted that SyncSpace was inducted into the ETSU Distinguished President's Trust for the partnerships that we've been able to form, specifically around entrepreneurship and business development. A total of which, for the last 12 months, has been a little more than $60,000 across programs specifically focused on veteran entrepreneurs and how we work with the university there. Partnership with student engagement for how do we keep these young, really talented students in our business community. Some joint partnerships with the ETSU Research Corporation around some talent that we're looking to bring on as management in the region. And then other project-related work that we're doing to have students engaged with startup community in Johnson City. We've also seen, and many of you have met, the companies that we've been able to recruit from outside of the region that are looking at Johnson City for their next home. Primarily, as you know, rural health and research is what our focus is how do we work with local partners, including the healthcare system, the university, the medical school, the VA, other things that make Johnson City specifically attractive to healthcare and technology companies. And we've had companies from these 5 states visit within the last 12 months, multiple times by each, and a large concentration out of specifically New York. We're excited about a new class that will be announced soon that will include companies that have applied from around the state of Tennessee that have found Northeast Tennessee as being their next best stop. Other projects that we have been able to have an impact for and directly fund from the SyncSpace funds and the Launch Tennessee funds are shown here on the screen, including different programs that we brought in. And one of the great things that I've seen happen in Johnson City specifically, when we talk about entrepreneurship, our efforts immediately become aligned with what's happening in talent retention, what's happening in workforce development, and what's happening with the education and the education system. And all of those things are much more aligned and much more intertwined than maybe at first blush you would notice. But through this effort, and especially during COVID, we've been able to build some really great partnerships with the small business community to provide additional programming that's impacted entrepreneurs, tech-based entrepreneurs, but also small businesses in Johnson City. A couple of those that are really a highlight there, I think, it's been pretty exciting that we were able to work with the state to get the SBIR program back, the matching program back, which a company in Johnson City received $100,000 from that program over the last few months. We've also been able to bring some programs from out of the area that have never been in Johnson City or even in the region to impact our small businesses around consumer good products that think Main Street, as well as the restaurants that were impacted by COVID to bring some professional help in for them as well. This, I believe, is just a first pass at what we will see happen in this next 12 months. The momentum that we are seeing right now among the state, not only from the programs that we've done, but also the brand that we're building for the city as far as being a center for entrepreneurship is pretty phenomenal. Right now, we're announcing the class that will be considered part of the first rural health accelerator that we're doing. This is in partnership with many of the healthcare industry in our region. It's a total investment from SyncSpace and our funding at $100,000, but it includes partnerships with the healthcare system and the universities to do research with these startup companies that are coming into the area. There are a handful that are from the region, but most have applied from around the country and have found a really unique place here. Some of the work that we're doing also is to see the opportunity to pilot technology in our region. This is something we talked about early on, is could we find an opportunity for a company that has a product or service that directly addresses the need of our region, let the help that we have here in the city help launch that product into our community to first affect the population health of our communities, but then also have it to be able to spread beyond our region and be exported to the country. Here's 4 examples of that are currently underway, that are really, really impactful projects. The top left being one of the most exciting, I think, on a personal level, is to see the impact that we believe we're about to see with the counseling and the educators around the ACEs, the adverse childhood events. The technology will be piloting in that space. And then also on the top right, mentioning that we believe that we'll be the home of the Nursing Accelerator Program, which is a partnership with Tennessee Tech, American Nursing Association, and other partners in Launch, Tennessee. That grant and that program alone represents a $3 million investment from the ARC and the other grant partners to help bring that to the area. Something else that's really exciting that's happened that I don't think I've mentioned to you guys as a group, I think several of us have talked about it individually, is that we are working very closely with the state now to bring a regional investment fund to our region. That would be in partnership with the state of Tennessee and some of the relief money related to the COVID that will make its way down to us. And each of the Launch Tennessee partners are we're putting a plan together to have a regional investment fund. That fund varies in size, but we're talking close to the $5 million range as potential fund that could be available by local decision makers to invest in companies that will make an economic impact here in Johnson City or the region. To me, that represents, it was something I didn't want to see first off, but it's definitely something now that we've laid some foundation that will really make an impact on the draw and the retainment that we'll see in young entrepreneurs being able to have a direct investment fund available. Moving on to a new topic, I want to share that we are actually making some pretty interesting headway as far as the branding of the city and the branding of this effort goes. Last week, the House Speaker for the state of Tennessee, Cameron Sexton, made a visit up to see us. One of, I think, two stops he had in this region was to come and see what we're doing here around building partnerships and how SyncSpace and our network has been put together. He's an incredible leader that's been very helpful in some things at the state level. And he's advocating strongly for the work we're doing, but also for increased grant opportunities through our efforts at SyncSpace in Launch, Tennessee. What's neat about it, we had a specific conversation around Johnson City's effort for remote workers, is the opportunity that is to work with the leadership at the House to put together a new grant that would accelerate and expand the remote working program that you already have in place here in the city. What I believe is that we're looking at the opportunity for us to be a center of gravity in Central Appalachia. No different than what we see. I think, Jenny, you and I talked about last night that Johnson City shows up 1 or 2 in the destination cities on nearly all fronts around the country. And I don't think that entrepreneurship is going to be any different. We're doing something very unique that's happening here. And our ability as a region to put partnerships together to benefit the people that we're trying to help is really making an impact. We've recently been added to the University of Tennessee's EDA grant, this would be SyncSpace, to be part of what's happening between Oak Ridge and the University of Tennessee. How does our region become part of what's known as the Innovation Valley, connecting Oak Ridge and Knoxville, but also them to us. And we believe that that's something that will be really beneficial to us, but also, honestly, the things that we've been able to put together are going to be greatly impactful to them as well. We've also been in contact with venture funds and other entrepreneurial efforts in other states that have reached out to us that have found the work that we're doing here and that they want to be part of it. Specifically, some larger funds in the surrounding states that I think will be there'll be some pretty unique announcements coming in the next 12 months related to the work we'll do together. Our healthcare partner here is also very much part of this conversation, and there's some exciting things that you'll see. We also will be one of the premier locations for the Equity and Diversity Program that the state of Tennessee just funded. And we're working with local corporate partners now on how we have an outreach into the workforce that's here to help encourage minority founders or minority families to look at entrepreneurship, and we have the resources provided or for them to be successful here in the region. We have 5 particular strategic goals over the next year for SyncSpace for Launch, Tennessee. What we want to see here is we've now hit a point where SyncSpace, our effort represents kind of a hub and spoke model for entrepreneurship in the region. Our footprint has grown pretty significantly over the last 12 months, and we're excited about what we see in partnerships, and we're planning on building a team to best suit the goals that I have just went through. And you'll see some of those on the left as far as how we're doing the hiring and the expansion of our team. We also have an additional focus on expanding the accelerator and the funding that's available there. And there's a lot of grant opportunities and people looking to be a part of what they're seeing here, and to be part of the Johnson City network specifically, because healthcare is a really important topic in the state, and innovation and entrepreneurship in healthcare is at the top of that conversation. We know that there'll be a venture and capital formation opportunity this next year, bringing a fund to this region, where that will be a major shift in our offering to the companies that we work with. And then we want to see these continued statewide partnerships expanding. We believe that our region represents the opportunity to lead a significant portion of the state in this new frontier of partnerships, and we're excited to present that to you guys. I will say the one thing that we will be, at some point in the near future, we'll want to have some discussion around what that looks like as far as the matching opportunities and the other things that are on the table when we get into the weeds of what this needs to look like going forward. I'm excited to say that the partners who are working with us are working very closely, that we align that budget to be the most efficient and most effective, so we can continue to grow at the speed that we're doing. But I wanted to be able to come tonight and just share with you all of these great things that are happening, answer any questions that you have, but mostly just to be thankful and grateful for the opportunity you've given us over the last 12 months to make an impact for entrepreneurs here in Johnson City.
Questions for Heath?
Thank you. Looks like it's certainly headed in the right direction.
Heath, what opportunities do you see coming in the next year as far as involvement and help from the state and ARC and other funding sources, and give us a snapshot of where you think we're going in the next 24, 36 months, and what kind of local help you're going to need on stuff like that.
Right. Thank you. That's a great question. The additional resources from the state are going to be available. It'll probably represent near double what we've been seeing as far as the resources. Now, with that comes the necessary matching that we have to do, just like we did in previous years. So for every dollar that comes in, we have to match it, and that's the way the grant is put together. That work funds the organization and helps continue to build the organization. The ARC and the grants that we're putting together, one, will rely on our expansion as an organization, but those dollars are specifically for programming and expansion with our partners. In other words, those aren't as most grants, they have specific uses that they're for. So when we think about the expansion of a digital media center here in Johnson City, which is one of the projects we're working on with the ARC now, that represents $500,000 that would go to build a physical digital media center. If there was a project we had in joint partnership with Johnson City or other organizations, we could help buy equipment, put technology in the space, and those sort of things. That would be in alignment with the budget requests and the grants of what we have from an operating expense, but not the same. I think the operating organization is going to be moving from where we are now in the 600,000 range up to 900,000 is about where we'll be at as an annual budget. And the impact from the grants that we're looking at right now is between $3 and $4 million that we'll be bringing into the area on top of what we're doing right now.
As I understand it, you all have a place in the new center that Kingsport's standing up.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see something similar to that here in Johnson City? I know we've long talked about developing economic development, and I use that term very broadly, and envision that in the Ash Street Courthouse. I mean, is that a place that this program or parts of this program plug in pretty nicely?
Yeah, absolutely. As a 30-second recap of what we've done in Kingsport, as a city, Kingsport, we've agreed that advanced manufacturing is an opportunity for Kingsport's organizations to kind of circle around. And so with that has come the recent announcement of a 9,000 square foot property that we're using for a digital media training center related to advancement of manufacturing, which is design of the 3D software and things that go with product design and material design. That is in tandem with what we've already done from a makerspace. And so there's an ecosystem that's created there from design to acceleration of a company around advanced manufacturing. In Johnson City, we still have available, between we being SyncSpace and other organizations that I'm a part of, have funds on hold for the opportunity in Johnson City specifically related to healthcare, health technology, which is a large breadth of technology that's needed for that, but also in the visual effects, digital media world, which we're seeing both with companies that are here, but also the interest at the state from us expanding. So when we talk about a project like the Ash Street Courthouse or something like that, my recommendation is kind of, what we were able to do in Kingsport is it was based around a aligned vision from the city, led by the city, that multiple organizations had a part to play. I think the same works for something here in Johnson City, where we could have multiple industries we're trying to affect and other agencies in the city that have an impact or a place in that conversation. That could make a really great opportunity for a particular building like the Ash Creek Courthouse to be very successful, because you would have an aligned vision around a particular goal, potentially into the digital media and healthcare space.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for Heath? Just make a comment. He was talking about efficient and effective, and I think his presentations are that way, he's that way, and his group is that way. So that's a good thing for this to keep going. So we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all very much.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Steve.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Your next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
Starting with Commissioner Hunter, do you have anything you'd like to pull?
Not today, or tonight.
Commissioner Brock?
No.
Vice Mayor?
None for me?
Commissioner Murphy?
Merry Christmas. No, sir.
All right.
Move for
well,
approval.
We have a motion.
Second.
Set motion and a second. If there's not objection to approval of the consent agenda, we'll go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. First reading.
Golly,
We're quick.
I might have.
The next item on our agenda is Ordinance 4799-21, first reading, an ordinance to assign zoning of R2C low-density residential to an approximately 40-acre territory along the northwest border of Indian Ridge near its intersection with Hopper Road, contingent upon annexation.
Good evening, Commissioners. So I am going to start with just a recap and a reminder of the policy timeline that we have that we're following for annexation now. So at the December 2nd meeting, you guys approved the request to proceed. And a couple nights ago, at the December 14th Planning Commission, the Planning Commission recommended for approval of the plan of services and the zoning assignment. This was under one motion. Now tonight, as you see at the December 16th meeting, we are actually going to separate those two out. Now, the preliminary resolution, which calls for the public hearing at the next meeting, just got approved with the consent agenda. This presentation is going to be about the zoning assignment. And then at next meeting, we'll have public hearing for both of those separate items as well, and then we'll follow it back up January 20th with the third reading for the zoning assignment. So just a reminder of the request, it's an approximately 40-acre territory right here along this curve of Indian Ridge Road, and the applicant is requesting a zoning assignment of R2C, which is low-density residential. There is no concept plan required per the zoning code for this request. There are plans to do 125 single-family residential lots, but just as a reminder, this is not binding because there is no concept plan. It is currently zoned A1 in the county, and just to give you guys an idea of what is around this area, it's adjacent to County A1, County R1, R2, R2B, R4, and RP3, so a lot of residential. And as another reminder of what R2C looks like, especially in comparison with some of the other R2s, it is the smallest of the R2 districts at 6,000 square feet for the minimum lot size and a minimum lot width line of 60 feet at the building line. The future land use map does indicate that this is residential, and seeing as residential is completely surrounding the territory, staff recommends approval, and just as I noted earlier, the Planning Commission recommended approval as well.
I have a question. How does that density compare? There's residential all around it, but how would the densities compare to the projects around it?
I can't give you an exact number, but because the lot size is smaller, it would be able to have a larger density. Now, it's still going to be single family. They can't do, multifamily, but I can absolutely calculate that to show you what that would look like.
That would be helpful because, I think by the time lots are 6,000 square feet, you're going to begin to feel that density just being in the
Yeah.
space.
How many homes per acre? Then I guess it's a good index compared to your R2 and R2As.
So with the proposal, like I noted, they do have 125 proposed lots, and it's about 40 acres. So I'm not going to try to do that math in my head, but
A third of an acre.
Third of an acre.
But it would be, if you could go, it would be interesting before second reading if we could see how those other residential projects that are right around it about what per acre is actually there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to gather that information for you guys.
They're on about 15,000 square foot lots, 12 to 15,000 square feet.
About a
probably.
city lot, roughly.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a Huntington Greens up the street, that's R2. You've got a subdivision across the street that's developed in the county that's probably somewhere between 10 and 15,000 square feet per lot, probably. And then you've got some farms up by Kyle Shells and going back up towards the school there.
Close to a third of the size.
It might also, as a part of that little project, because I know you just love to have things to do, it'd be helpful to see where else we've used R2C, because my recollection of those residential zoning classifications, a couple of those I think were adopted to deal with some quirky little non-conforming uses elsewhere. And if my memory serves, there's some lots kind of on Pardee and New Orleans and a few of them that are really small lots, and when the zoning was applied, this may have been created to avoid having some non-conformity. So it'd be interesting to see if there are very many other examples of us actually zoning things R2C.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to gather that information.
Could you go back to that slide too, that had your, okay, just the side setbacks? Okay, thanks.
Are there other questions for Peyton? So this is on first reading. We'll have public hearing on second reading?
Correct.
Okay, and that'll be the first meeting of January. So is there a motion from the commission on first reading?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next is ordinance number 4795-21. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled An Ordinance to Adopt a Code of Laws and Ordinances for the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and amendatory thereof by changing from B4 planned arterial business zoning to RP3 planned residential zoning, certain property located at 2644 Knob Creek Road. Ready for your consideration on second reading and public hearing.
Good evening. It's been a little bit since we have seen this one, so I'm going to go through the presentation one more time for the public. But where we are located here is Mountain View Road. The site is here, and like it said, it's about 22 acres. What they would like to do is to do attached single family, and it will be rental. It is 178 units. There are 2 points of ingress and egress, one here by the FBI Center and the other over here on Mountain View. They are providing they're providing about 32% of open space. They are talking about sidewalks along Mountain View. As far as the Knob Creek project, I believe I see some transportation people over here. If we need to explore that a little bit further. And those kind of improvements will happen with the Knob Creek overpass project. But there are internal sidewalks and things like that. The applicant is here, and so they have presentations about their architecture and things like that. So I'll save that part for them. So Knob Creek overpass. We don't have an exact date of when this will occur, but this is the plan laid over with the overpass. And what that would look like. So they are incorporating in their engineering this future roadway. As far as adjoining densities, you'll notice that over time, some of this area that has in our future land use has been marked for something commercial has changed over to residential. This is a project that you all approved, I want to say in the summer, which has 15 units an acre. You can see that we're coming down in density for this particular corner. Like I said before, the future land use has changed in this area, so staff would recommend approval of this. We can go back to this. staff recommends approval. There was an adjoining property meeting, and that there was one person that attended. We have had different emails about the project. Most of the concerns are about the timing of this development with current traffic conditions and then proposed construction of what happens. The Planning Commission also recommended approval. It was a 5-3 vote. So there was some much discussion about the timing of the project, what would happen as different things kind of rolled along there. This is public hearing, so I'm sure there is public here to comment. And if you have any questions of staff, I am happy to answer.
Are there questions for staff before we invite the petitioner to present?
Are they expanding the Knob Creek Road for a turn lane off of Knob Creek going in by the FBI area?
I believe so, yes. It would, before the project. I'm gonna make
That
sure that-
becomes a 5-lane cross-section up through there. It'll look like the cross-section between Lowe's and Fuddruckers. You'll have 2 lanes in each direction and a center turn lane. And you would have decel lanes. I'm sure, Anthony, y'all will require decel lane into the project.
He's a long way to hear him.
They're going to need you to approach the mic, Mr. Todd.
I was really trying to mess with JT.
The current plan is for them to have a decel lane at this time. If you want one to add it in the future, that is not part of their plan as part of the Knob Creek project.
Right. Okay.
Are there other questions for staff? Is the petitioner, the applicant here wishing to make any comments or introduction? Please come on. If you'll give your name and business address and.
My name's Angus Musser, our business at 1855 East Main Street, Spartanburg, South Carolina. Appreciate y'all hearing our project here today. As you heard from Whitney earlier, we're requesting a downzoning here from B4 to RP3 for the development of 178 townhomes. As you can see here, this is some of the representative product. This is a project that we just finished in Charleston, South Carolina. And so these are, representative elevations of what we would be building and some of the courtyard space. Here's some, images of the amenity center. We'll have a leasing office in the clubhouse area with restrooms and grilling stations, as well as mail pickup there. And there were some other pictures of other representative interiors. We'll have granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, and so it's a high-end product that we're looking to bring to the area. Just for we're looking to bring an innovative, high-quality housing to support the upwardly mobile workforce that you all have coming here to Johnson City, and just want to help kind of alleviate some of the issues that have come on in the past couple of years with the housing shortage. As so many people have moved into Johnson City, we think that our project would be helpful in that space. So I'm open to answer any questions if you all have them.
Are there questions for Mr. Moser?
Would you go through your timeline again? I know you did it for us last time, but just kind of repeat that if you would.
Yeah, so if we're approved here in the next couple of readings, we would be hoping to break ground about July of 2023 with first unit deliveries in, July of 22 with first unit deliveries in early 2023 and completion late 2023 or early 2024.
Okay. So mid next year, or mid 22, you would actually be having activity over there?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there other questions? If not, I guess thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will open public hearing, and just by way of reminder, just so that everybody is heard and has an opportunity to speak, we will set a 3-minute time limit for public comment. If somebody who has spoken before you has made the point you might want to make, see if you can make another point as opposed to repeating it. It's helpful, I think, to keep that in mind. It's not so much that we're tallying how many times we hear it. We're trying to take into account all of the information that's available. So with that said, we'll open the public hearing. And do I have a volunteer to have a timer?
I've got it right
Okay,
here.
we've got a timer. So anyone wishing to speak for or against Ordinance 4795-21?
Good evening.
If you'll give your name and address, please.
My name is Niles Geary. I live at 3311 Bondwood Circle in the Briarwood neighborhood, which is right smack in the middle of all this fun that we're talking about tonight. I'm going to read some prepared comments because it'll probably go much better that way. So I'm here tonight to voice my vigorous opposition to this recent zoning request of the 178 townhouse development at Knox Creek Road that passed its initial vote in its first reading. While I recognize that the land is likely going to be developed at some point, the timing, in my opinion, could not be worse. You just approved a 288 apartment complex that's less than a half a mile away next to the Preserve apartment complex. In fact, I think it's the same builder building these as well. The intersection of West Mountain View Road and Knob Creek already has a significant bottleneck issue. The approval of the new 288 apartments will only make a bad situation worse. Anyone with any common sense should recognize that any decision to add additional traffic to the area is just a horrific idea. In reality, if you don't live in the area and you don't experience it every single day, I'm sure that it probably seems like a smaller problem than it actually is. The intersection has been known an issue going back years. In fact, it's because of that I really didn't think that the 288 complex was going to be approved. However, I was proven wrong on that issue, and I don't want to be proven wrong again. That's why I'm here today. We heard that about the new changes being planned and the tunnel was going to be fixed. We've heard about that for a number of years as well. It's one that you recognize, and that's why you've developed a plan to add 3 different lanes to it. The problem is, as of today, the project's not funded, it hasn't even gone out to bid. It is years away. The traffic currently can back up far enough on West Mountain View Road that people who live in the Haven apartment complex can't even get out. Imagine for a moment that you're attempting to get to work early in the morning for an important meeting, and you can't even get out of your own neighborhood because traffic has you blocked. How frustrating would that be if you happen to be in that situation? It's just not. I used to live in D.C., so I've experienced that. It's a nightmare. Now consider that your elected officials have just approved a new 288 apartment complex practically next door that will make the situation worse. But wait, as they say, there's more. Now they're voting on approval of 178 townhouse development that actually is right next door. These details alone should be more than enough for you to vote down this project. However, with the new apartment development approved, I can see additional traffic blocking the ability of people who live in the Berkshire neighborhood from being able to leave their neighborhood. And once that happens, it will only take a handful of additional cars to then block my neighborhood. The article in the Johnson City Press provided plenty of evidence that approving this plan is a terrible idea. In one article, I learned that Stacy Wild, the former chair of the Planning Commission, was there to, and I quote, to strongly oppose this idea. She lives in the area and headed up the Planning Commission. So in my opinion, I don't think you could find a better expert witness to be opposed to this plan.
That is 3 minutes.
All right.
Thank you. If you'll hold your applause, please. This is a meeting, not a spectacle. We'll invite the next speaker to the podium. If you'll give your name and address, please.
My name is John Frizzell. I live at 3312 Bondwood Circle. This development is probably inevitable, and that's not my issue. I'm surprised, however, that the planning group has not considered the roadways, forget the overpass, on West Oakland and on Knob Creek. The bridge over Knob Creek may be the worst bridge in Johnson City. It's kind of a disgrace. And if you're going to put more traffic onto those 2 roads and not fix those particular areas, then I think you're doing a disservice to the citizens of Johnson City. and you're putting people's lives in danger. The curve on West Oakland that goes over past the Knob Creek Farm, down over the creek and where you turn to Lowe's, that's a terrible curve. It's a blind curve. And to put the traffic on that road, additional traffic, and I think it's 15% increase. I think that's what I saw in terms of daily usage. Just doesn't make any sense to me without that requirement being met. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak tonight. My name is John Flaherty, and I live at 2817 Knob Creek Road. So my property is just in between Simmons Ridge and Mitzvah Hills. So on a daily basis, I need to come through the tunnel to go to work, need to pass again through the tunnel to come home. Typically, it's usually 5:36. I'm coming through. It's at least a 10-minute wait for me to make my way up Knob Creek Road to get through the tunnel. So on a daily basis, it is definitely a delay and a hassle for me to come home. The road, I believe, is actually very narrow. It's has no shoulder at all right now. I'm not sure what the developer plans to do to widen that in the short term, but clearly at this moment, it's definitely not adequate for additional traffic. As mentioned just previously, the bridge over Knob Creek itself, very narrow, going around a corner, people come flying across there, and there's perpetually a pothole on the right side. So you always tend to want to try to avoid that. Accidents are at some point going to be inevitable there as traffic increases. My primary concern would be just, I do know several people. I've been fortunate to be able to hire a few people to come into the region lately. They have looked at property in my area and in Strawberry Fields and Bondwood Circle. They elected not to buy in that property because the traffic currently is overwhelming. So as we add another 178 families to that area, I can be quite sure that the interest in that area is going to decrease, and of course my property values are going to decrease as well as the property values of everybody in that area. I had a pleasure of meeting Mr. Packall, who was the engineer on this project, about 18 months ago. He told me that the estimated completion or the estimated start was going to be about 18 months, which would be right around now, the end of 2021. Of course, that's before COVID, and obviously a lot of things have happened. Here we are 18 months later, and we're still about 18 months away from the project starting. The last I saw in the Johnson City Press, they look like the earliest they might start is about July of 2023, and looks like about a 2-year project. So if I were to just do the project planning on this, the apartment complex or the townhome complex would be finishing up late 2023, and you're just about then starting the road construction. So now you have a whole bunch of more families moving in the area while you're doing construction. Now, we all know how much fun it is to drive through construction. So just go ahead and think about all the traffic there is now, add another 178 families, and now you've got a real mess on your hands. So, and then of course, that's going to last about 2 years. So now just imagine where my property values and those of the people in that area are going to be in about 3 or 4 years from now. It's going to be a mess. So
That's 3 minutes.
okay. So
thank you.
timing.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
I'm Clifton Mitchell. I live at 3328 Berkshire Circle. This is the second time I've been before the city commission about building apartments, and I can tell you the first time for everyone was a horrible experience. The commission didn't listen, didn't answer questions, and didn't do anything we were promised. I have one straightforward question to start with and a number of questions, and the first one is simple. Why don't you fix the road problems first that everybody is aware of before you allow cramming in any more apartments and townhouses?
This is your opportunity to address the commission. We are not in a position to take questions in this forum, so please limit yours to public
Okay,
comment.
when do people get to ask a question like this then? If I can't ask it now, when do the citizens get to ask you this question, which is the burning primary question that you all know and everybody knows? The traffic is horrible. You've crammed apartments in there against our wishes repeatedly. Why don't you fix the road problems first before you allow any more building? It's a simple, straightforward question, and it's the issue right now. When do we get to ask it and get a straight answer if I can't do it now?
Sir, I think you got a great question. I think a lot of it was answered in first reading, which I'm assuming you didn't watch or attend. And hopefully traffic can speak to a lot of that during that part of the discussion. But if you want to go on with your other question.
So the question is, though, why don't you fix the traffic problems and the roads first before you allow building?
Like I
So
said,
what was the
this
answer
is your-
given before?
this
You're
is-
eating into your time.
You're eating into your time.
I
This
know.
is your
I got
chance to
3
ask.
minutes
Right.
and I can't get one question
Ask your other
answered.
question.
Okay, if I presented a petition from the neighbors in that area, how many citizens would I have to get signatures from before each of you would vote no on this project? And I'll start with you, Ms. Jennings. How many signatures
Well,
would it
for the record, Ms. Jennings is a city employee.
Okay,
She's
sorry,
not a
who's the
voting member of the
commissioner? Pardon me. Mr. Murphy, how many signatures on a petition would it take for you to vote no?
I'll defer
I
to
want a
our
number.
mayor.
Please don't run off and give me a political distracting answer. Give me a number.
Your question is heard at this point in
Okay,
time.
where
We're
do we
not gonna
get an
respond.
answer?
Well, that you will hear that in deliberation.
Okay, so you're going to determine, you're going to tell us in deliberation the number of.
To the point that that conversation is relevant to this
It is very
specific
relevant.
rezoning request.
If we have a petition, you're going to tell us how many names would need to be on that petition for you to vote no then. You're telling me that.
Your 3 minutes, sir.
You don't want to answer my question,
Well,
do
I'm
you?
going to answer it as soon as we're done in public hearing, but the short answer is the number of signatures on a petition is not relevant to the question at hand. The relevant question is the merits of the request in front of us.
Yes.
Expert input and public input. This is not if you bring me
And
500
the wishes
signatures,
of
it
the
doesn't matter.
citizens are not important?
That is a part of the consideration. You're asking me for a magic number, and
No,
I'm
it's not
telling you,
magic.
you said how many
How many?
signatures? There is not a magic number.
You, if
There
I
is
brought you
not a magic
1,000
number.
signatures, you wouldn't change your
There
mind?
is not a magic number. I'm answering your question.
No,
There's not
you're
a magic
You're not
number.
giving me a number.
Because there isn't one.
Well, so if I brought you 10,000 signatures, you wouldn't change your mind?
And now this is absurd.
No,
Okay,
it isn't.
your time is done,
That is a
sir.
legitimate question.
So how many signatures does it take for them to vote to approve it?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I haven't seen
I
anybody
don't
but the
think there's an
contractors
answer to
ever
either
down here
question.
wanting to approve it.
I mean, this
The only
impacts
people-
everybody in the region. I understand it directly impacts you. I've got hundreds of apartments around my house. They're fine.
Yes, but I don't hear
Traffic's a
anybody
mess
in
at the
here
university.
saying let's
You
do
learn
it.
to live with it.
I don't hear anybody saying let's do it but the contractors.
Sir, your time.
Mr. Mitchell, your
All right,
time is
I got
up.
you. I'd love to see the answers to these questions sometime. Particularly, why don't you
Your
fix the
time is
roads
up.
first? I got
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against?
My name's Rick Domaslowski. I live at 113 Strawberry Field Drive, and while I'm not as passionate as the previous gentleman, I don't disagree or have an angst against the project itself, but I do think great consideration needs to be given to the timing of the overpass project and the approval of this so that we really alleviate the traffic concerns. Like John Flaherty, I go through there every day in and out for work. I'm at the bottom of that hill at 5:30 waiting. If you add another exit there, people try to make a left at that time without really fixing the infrastructure first. It'll be a major safety issue. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
name is Suzanne Anders. I live at 3327 Berkshire Circle. I don't think that there's anyone here that's against the complex. What we are concerned about is the safety of the people that travel Knob Creek and West Oakland Avenue up to even the State of Franklin Road, because those areas are extremely congested. And my question would not be how many signatures it would take. My major concern is, when would our eyes be opened? How many deaths would it take? How many accidents would it take? Because it's very dangerous driving in those areas, especially at the little bridge, the one-way bridge on Knob Creek below the Church of the Brethren, the blind curve at the Knob Creek Farms. It's scary. You come around there, they can't see even when the sun's setting, and they're on the wrong side of the road, and there is a ditch there. You can't move over any further. So I would just like for you to take the time and be thoughtful of those issues, because we're not against progress, but we're for the safety of our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against 4795-21? A moment ago, I thought Mr. Spiropoulos might be coming. Did anybody? Did
In the meantime, if he's going to come back, Mr. Peterson, could you just run through, Mr. Penzola at our last meeting, I thought, went through a very detailed plan of how the roads were going to be improved, Knob Creek and Mountain View Road as well.
And Oakland.
And Oakland, yeah. Could you just kind of run through that again?
Andy, I'm going to be stretching to remember all that. Can you or Anthony better answer that? I mean, with the Knob Creek Road project, TDOT has agreed to take over that project.
Correct.
We've got to get a couple of more pieces of right-of-way, which has already started, and then TDOT has agreed to take the project and build that section of Knob Creek. There will be, and Anthony's pulling it up now.
we still have public hearing open. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against 4795-21? Okay.
Mayor. John Spiropoulos. I live in Strawberry Fields at 406 Shade Tree Way. I'm in favor of this project. I also am the broker representing the seller. I'll drive through that tunnel tonight, and I'd sign the petition for the development. We all agree the traffic is challenging. Hopefully, this development will be the impetus that gets the state to do the work. That is my hope. I think it's a very appropriate use for this development. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no one further to speak, we'll close public hearing and back to you, Mr. Peterson, or Mr. Best.
Anthony?
Or Mr. Todd.
Okay. Andy, please.
Whichever. The projects that we've got planned are 3 lanes of Oakland and Mountain View that tie all the way back down to where the Knob Creek project will come together. And then, of course, the Knob Creek project here. We're looking at additional things even beyond what you see here. This is part of the state project that will go all the way through here, that goes over the railroad. And then we are also looking at some additional lanes in this area. If you all are interested in that project, we have some drawings that we're starting on that.
I don't know if they can hear you back there, Anthony,
Sorry
to
about
make
that.
sure. Now, that's Knob Creek, so and that's going to be 5 lanes?
The Knob Creek is the darker blue
Mhm.
road. It is 5 lanes, all the way from where you see the intersection where Lowe's ties in,
Mhm.
all the way across the bridge. And then there's, it narrows down in this section as you go back toward Boone's Creek.
And would that address on the south end of Knob Creek, will that address the bridge issue that's being referred to?
It does. It
So
widens that
widen the
bridge.
bridge
Yes.
there, okay. And then Mountain View Road,
Mountain View Road, we're looking at making it 3 lanes and obviously improving it, taking some of the curve out of it, so it would be a much better road to ride. as
now,
well.
would we be waiting until the overpass project begins, or are we gonna go ahead and make those improvements?
I think that's going to be up to you, to
Okay.
be quite honest. If we are interested in doing that earlier, I think we certainly can. I don't see no reason why we couldn't do that before the Knob Creek project got started.
Is that part of the scope the state has agreed to on, I guess this is technically phase 2 of Knob Creek or phase
No.
1 of Knob Creek?
What Anthony's talking about on Oakland and Mountain View,
Oh, I thought he was talking down by the Church of the Brethren.
no,
Oh.
well, unless I misunderstood, Oakland and Mountain View are local roads.
Yes, sir.
That will be part of your budget request
I
that
see.
you'll consider this spring. So that'd be a local project that will, I don't know if we do that in-house or not, but,
We have talked about it.
okay, that's a big project.
It is a
but-
big project.
But that would create a considerable improvement in traffic flow
Absolutely.
in the area we're talking about.
Yes, ma'am. This phase 1 of this project terminates just over the crest of the hill at Stone Ridge, where you turn into Stone Ridge. It terminates right in that general area.
Yes, it goes just past Mizpah Hills.
Then the state has, as a part of the Improve Act, the section that would run from State Route 354 to the point that this phase 1 stops. Now, what's very significant about that, the Improve Act specifically lists the road projects that are to be funded as a result of that increase in the gas tax, state gas tax 2 or 3 years ago. So the state of Tennessee is bound and obligated to build that road. It's not going to be one of those that they talk about that never gets built. There's legislation that requires them to build that road. So you will see a section from 354 up to Mizpah Hills, Stone Ridge area that will tie into this. So you're going to have an improved road from essentially the new Boones Creek School to Lowe's.
And at our last meeting too, we had some discussion about residents out in that area looking at alternative ways of, getting into town and how that might happen. I did have someone ask me if a red light could be put at the Carroll Creek Tunnel, that more people might come through and use that if there was some way of getting through there safely. So I'll just throw
We-
that
we
out.
could-
Johnny's.
Yeah, I think that's in the county, but.
Is it?
Work with Johnny. and
Yeah,
see.
let's see if we could do that. That might be encouraging for people to take that, so.
Couple questions. The existing apartment complexes that, I guess, on Mountain View, the Reserve and the Haven, do they have 1 or 2 means of egress, or do you recall?
There, I believe there's one driveway. I do not have a close-up of it, but
So
where you see just above this, I believe there's only one driveway right here. There's a turn lane on Mountain View, and then there's also a decel lane on Mountain View.
And so the proposed project in the 288 unit project that was approved earlier, 1 or 2, I know the new one has 2 areas where people can disperse from more than one location,
The
right?
one on Oakland has 2.
Okay.
So they can come out on Oakland, or I just lost the name of that road.
Goes back over to Hanover.
So
Yes, it does.
there's multiple opportunities other than Knob Creek or Mountain View for these newer projects, rather than one funneling point for the apartment complex.
Yes.
And then, and I'm flying in the dark on this question, but, and you all deal with the state more often than I do. In I think one of the questions dealt with why before or after, chicken or egg, whatever. Does the state typically get ahead of development, or are they usually behind development and after the need's already been there?
That's easy. They're always chasing development.
Okay. So unfortunately, the development could cause more traffic, but the state may not see any need to do it sooner rather than later unless there is a more imminent need.
They typically react quicker when there is a demonstrated need than they do to pre-plan and be out in front of development. Yes, sir.
And then I guess my final question at this point in time is the traffic that causes the bottleneck at the tunnel at Knob Creek, and this may be speculative for you to answer, I don't know, but that traffic, is that derived from traffic originating from the whatever side, the more residential side that's creating that bottleneck, or is it coming from the state of Franklin side that creates that? And I know it goes both ways, but the origination of that traffic, is it everything from the low side, or is it from all the development that was done 20 years ago in the residential piece?
It appears to be primarily residentially driven to go through the tunnel. There's very little reason for people to go all the way to Boone's Creek Road to try to skip through, because you're certainly not going to save any time going that way.
And I can't recall who asked the question at first reading, but a development like this, the assumption is that the traffic will, from this development would, if it was going to be on Knob Creek, would be going from the development towards state of Franklin, not towards the tunnel, because they would be going to work, they would be going to grocery stores and going to those types of amenities, correct? Oh, okay, yeah.
This is the estimates that we did. This is, let me go back one if I can. So you have this many trips estimated per day. When you start looking at the AM and PM peak, which is what causes the most pain for people in the traffic, we look at that, we break that down, and we start looking at which way would they go and how much impact would it have in the different directions. We would estimate that very little of the traffic would go through the tunnel. The vast majority would be heading back in the direction of shopping, groceries, employment, and those things of that nature. We think that the majority would try to go down Knob Creek rather than down Mountain View, but in discussion, if it is more difficult to use Knob Creek, then they probably will choose to use Mountain View more. And this is on the exiting side of it. So as you come back on the entering side, there's very little impact with the residential. You have very low volumes. You can see there's only 20% of the total that are entering at that time. So you look at the PM peak, and here's how it's impacted. The majority of the people are coming back. Very few people are leaving. And so you see the vast majority we would expect to take Knob Creek and directly into that first driveway there, which I know that there was reference to the traffic backing up past that driveway. And we did video it, we did watch it, and for a brief period, the day that we watched, it did back up for about 5 minutes past that driveway. I'm not going to say that there's going to be times that it's longer, because I'm sure it is. But once they get up to that driveway, they will be able to get on into the driveway and it not be an issue for the rest of the people. As you look at the exiting at that same time, PM peak, there's just not much that would be expected based on what the normal trips are for residential. Did that help?
Thank you. And then prior to the road, or the state building their road, if I remember correctly, the developers are going to have a decel lane. Is that was stated correctly?
You're going to have a decel lane, a right turn lane into
right turn lane, yeah,
the driveway.
Mr. Todd, during peak times, do we alter the timing of our traffic lights at all to allow more cars to get out, say, on State of Franklin?
We do.
That might be stacked up
Is
there.
it a challenge, though? State of Franklin is also a challenge. Yes, we do. There are different time periods. AM, we have a plan, and then we have midday, and then the PM. The PM, we're primarily, with residential, we'd be primarily coming back in. So some of that's going to be right and left turn off of State of Franklin. But the morning is not loaded up as bad as it is in the PM. The PM is mainly driven by commercial, retail, and things of that nature.
And in some of the established neighborhoods already there, particularly off Mountain View Road, did y'all observe that traffic was having a hard time turning out? If they were turning left, for example, on Mountain View Road, was there difficulty there because there aren't brakes in the traffic?
We didn't see a lot of that. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. I do believe that it probably does happen. But when we watched it, it was, and we videoed around the reserve, and we videoed down at the FBI driveway, and we went back and watched all of that. And we didn't see a lot of difficulty at the times that we were looking at. We tried to look at it on an average day, not on a weekend or something like that. So, but if you've got a lot of people leaving at one time, if they all choose to leave in that same compressed time period, sure, you're going to have some backup.
On the light at the tunnel?
This is our meeting now, please. Please sit down, sir. No, I would appreciate you not questioning my motives, sir. We are having a public meeting. Mr. Todd has the floor, and this is a city commission meeting. And for that, you can observe. Thank you.
The light at the tunnel. Have we changed it where in the evenings the light is longer going out north, out of toward the neighborhoods, and in the morning had it last longer going toward town to the south?
We haven't, and we could probably manipulate it in that direction. It is primarily driven by the sensors, and unfortunately, there's somebody on the sensor just about all the time. And so we could probably do something in that realm to help a little bit. I'm not sure that it's going to help a great deal, but we might try.
I've lived in Bondwood Circle and Sterling Springs, so I know both of those places very, very well. So it's not that I'm coming from a position of not going through that tunnel many, many times. I went through before there was even a stoplight. There used to be just alternate people, and believe me, there were times it was ugly. So it's better than it used to be. We're trying to make things better for everybody in Johnson City. You think we don't care in that, but I promise you we do. I'm a physician. I sure don't want anybody hurt or dying in a car wreck. So I'm on your side as far as that goes. But are there things we can do until we get that? No one wants that overpass more than these people right up here. I can promise you, we've heard about it. I've heard about it. I've talked about it. I've been on here for 5 years, and I don't know that there's months that don't go by that we don't talk about it every time. When is this going to happen? So it's not that we don't care. It's not that we don't want our citizens safe. So please never think that of us. All right. So if we can find a way to make it better until we get this done, we would love to do that. So we appreciate comments about possible things we can do, and what we care about is our citizens. So don't ever think that we don't, please. But if we can find a way to help this, we're going to try, all right?
Right, and I think it's important to note, there were a couple of questions raised in the public input, one of which was about the traffic planning and the logistics of this. We've been buying land out there. We've been funding designs. We've been pursuing the state. We've been slowly but steadily moving that forward to the point where it would now, I guess in federal government speak, be a nearly shovel-ready project. And so but that's certainly part of it. But the thing that I think we need to remember, we're not being asked to vote up or down on apartments. That's not the question before us. The question before us is a landowner who owns the land, who has certain property rights because they own the land, has asked us to rezone the property. It's a land use question. The land use question isn't stay a farmer's field or be apartments. The land use question is high-intensity retail commercial B4, car lots and big box retail, or less intensive residential use. That's the question we're being asked. Now, all of any development there, it has the potential for impacting traffic, and we recognize that. And I would encourage everybody to think back to 20 years ago, what Knob Creek looked like from Mahoney's to MedTech Corridor. You know, that stretch of Knob Creek really didn't look all that different than the stretch of Knob Creek from State of Franklin to there at Lowe's out to the tunnel. It was essentially a more rural kind of county road, very little in the way of shoulders, et cetera. What drives development, what drives the investment in infrastructure is the need. Now, can we, in a perfect world, the overpass would be finished, we would do a ribbon cutting, we would have punch and cookies, and then they would break ground on the apartments. But we don't get to influence planning at that granular level, because there are a lot of other stakeholders and a lot of other factors that drive that development. I'm only one vote, but I'll tell you, if I lived in any of the neighborhoods in the area off Mountain View or up in that area, the slow transition from low-density, single-family residential homes to slightly denser multifamily residential is vastly more appealing than living on the backside of a Publix or a Sam's Club or a Super Target, where trucks are delivering at 4 o'clock in the morning and so forth. So please recognize that on the traffic piece, we have pursued and discussed and explored and asked questions and put forth effort in that area. And I feel very good about where we are with TDOT right now taking on that project. That has accelerated its place in line. I also think, though, that we have to be candid about what the choices are before us. The choice before us right now is whether the use of that 22 acres is better as a high-intensity retail commercial B4 project or not, and whether it is better as an, in this case, an RP3 with a binding site plan where once we would approve this, it can't be modified without the plan being modified and coming back before us. I think that puts us as a community in a better place than we would be. At B4, they just have to come in and pull a permit. Doesn't matter what anybody thinks. They can do whatever they want. If it's an allowable use, they can do that tomorrow.
Could you just clarify West Oakland? I think you spoke to it as to what might be on.
Anthony,
Mr. Todd would, yeah.
Sure. Go back to that slide. You probably can't see my cursor very well, but West Oakland Avenue, where it narrows down, we're planning to widen this to 3 lanes all the way into Mountain View, and Mountain View all the way up to where Knob Creek Road is. The width would be 3 lanes.
When? It's a good question.
That is not.
When it's funded.
Yeah,
I guess is
that's
the
not
answer.
for me to
Did
say.
you say from State of Franklin up to West Mountain View is what your 3 lanes?
From Knob Creek Road all the way back to where it narrows down around Hanover.
You're
So
right
you're
there
right-
at like Cheddar's and Mad Greek and Hanover.
What are you gonna do about, are you gonna widen that road at some point? Is that even a
West Oakland?
Yeah, West Oakland.
Yes, yeah, so
Yes.
West Oakland is a little bit wider at the red light. So at the head, so they're talking about expanding it from where it's wider at the head on down to Mountain View. Yeah, from State of Franklin.
And then Knob Creek will be 5 lane
Yes, it will.
with the turn lane in the center, and that will take care of the bridge that has been referred to tonight. One last question, Mr. Todd, and I promise this will be my last. As the mayor said, it's B4 right now, and they could just come and pull permits to build a shopping center in there. Did y'all do any traffic studies if it were a shopping center built on those, 22 acres?
If a
Just
shopping
happens to
center
have
were
a-
built, these are the kinds of trips that you look at. So general office would most likely be the worst-case scenario for the tunnel, because it would likely draw people from the other side of the tunnel back and forth. So that is probably the worst-case scenario. Shopping center would be competing with other shopping centers, may not draw as many through the tunnel. But these are both types of things that you got to watch for. The numbers are certainly the highest with the shopping center, and by the time you boil it down, I'll go all the way down here. as you look at your numbers there, they're higher, but as you look at your AM peak, the general office is what's going to cause you a big problem at the tunnel if you were to have something like that. Now, in the PM, it's going to be reversed again. The general office is going to be probably the worst thing for the tunnel. As far as the shopping center, it still was produced quite a bit of traffic there, but not as much as a general office would. As far as the overall traffic on Knob Creek Road and Mountain View, it certainly would be the shopping center.
Are there other questions for staff? No. Thank you, Mr. Todd. Commission for action.
I will move for approval on second reading.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? If there's not a,
Mayor, I would encourage those that are directly impacted to go back and watch first reading where there was a lot more detail as far as traffic impact and things being done, where Mr. Pinzola was available to go into detail into that, as well as what was talked about tonight. But I would encourage that.
and I think suggestions and ideas about how to streamline that are really best directed at Mr. Pinzola or the traffic and public works folks, because they're the ones that implement those plans. The worst thing that you could end up with is, you know, a road system that was designed by a committee. So let the engineers do it. So with that, if there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yeah, I would like to say that this request has come by way of much concern from citizens. I've received a lot of emails from people that live in this neighborhood. I've held my comments to the end before I cast my vote, because I just want to make sure that I do give some thought into this. The major concern is a potential increase in traffic that this development would bring, and not the actual project itself. A Walmart could be there if they pull permits, such as Mayor Wise has expressed. Or we could have people live there and take care of their families. We have a housing problem in our city, and we know that Johnson City is on the cusp of great growth. We just got done with hiring a city manager. Every city manager that I had a one-on-one with, they said Johnson City is on the cusp of great growth. Now, here's the thing about growth. You can't stop it. You can't control it, but we can get ahead of it. And getting ahead of it is changing the zone of this land so we don't have a big Walmart back there, making a whole lot of our neighbors mad with a whole lot of traffic. Getting ahead of the growth is saying yes to changing the zoning so we have less traffic and less angry neighbors. So my vote is yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes, but I will say that I will be pushing for Oakland and that to be expanded, our part of that, to go ahead and get started. So by the time this is done, that Mountain View and Oakland will be that 3 lanes that we're talking about by the time we get done or get close to being done. I know we don't have much control on Knob Creek, and that bridge is bad. I go over it all the time. So we need to fix potholes, and we need to get that expanded soon too. But yes, I'll be pushing for that.
I'll push with you.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
All right, your next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4796-21. An ordinance to abandon a portion of the public right-of-way known as West King Street, a portion of the public right-of-way known as McClure Street, and an alley located between tax map 46N Group J, parcels 20 and 21, upon the terms and conditions contained herein, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. Ready for your consideration on second reading and public hearing. Mr. Ryder, please, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Wise, Vice Mayor Fowler, Mr. Peterson. Good evening, and thank you for your service and for the opportunity to work here. You'll be missed.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. This is a city-initiated request for abandonment of 3 rights-of-way The Johnson City Regional Planning Commission, this came via a plat that would consolidate 9 lots in the King Commons Park. Johnson City Regional Planning Commission approved the plat contingent upon Board of Commissioners closing of the public rights-of-way. You all approved the public rights-of-way as delineated on this map at your December 2nd, 2019 meeting. As you can see, I have no new information to present from the last presentation. These are no longer functioning as streets. West King Street here and this section of McClure Street are closed off by bollards. They don't function as streets. This is not functioning an alley in some time. This is a look at the plat. There are 9 lots here. Upon closing the right-of-way, this is what you'd be left with here with one lot, 9 to 1. And I think you all are familiar with these pictures here. Staff recommends approval. The Johnson City Regional Planning Commission recommends approval of the closing of these rights-of-way, and the Board of Commissioners approved it on first reading December 2nd.
We need to have a public hearing as well, so before we open the floor for that, are there any questions for staff on this right-of-way abandonment? If not, we'll open the floor to public comment, public hearing in favor or opposition to 4796-21. Again, there's a 3-minute time limit. Please come one at a time. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
A controversial topic.
Yes. We have a motion and a second. All those, if there aren't objections, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next is ordinance 4797-21. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and mandatory thereof by changing from A1 agricultural zoning to R2 low-density residential zoning, property located at 219 Lynn Road, ready for your consideration on second reading and public hearing.
The property in question is before you. It's approximately 5.5 acres. It is surrounded by residential, and that it would be here, except for, back here it's industrial. But on Lynn Road, it's surrounded by residential. What they would like to do is to be able to subdivide the property out. The subdivision requirements for A1 would be a higher, would be a greater amount for a lot, and they really only want about an acre for their daughter. Future land use map calls it for residential. There was no one in attendance in the neighborhood meeting, and staff and planning commission have both recommended approval.
Also an item of public hearing, so we'll open the floor to anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition to 4796-21. All right. If you'll give your name and address.
I'm that person. I'm Lisa Ginley. My
Oh,
address
I'm
is...
sorry, I have to open the public hearing. Here we go. Now it's official.
All right, that person's me.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
Lisa Ginley. My address is 237 Lynn Road. We acquired this property after my husband and daughter masterminded a plan. First, with the good Lord above, they went and had prayer. And then my daughter contacted the property owner that acquired it from a neighbor. My husband used to play on this land, so we purchased it. And we would just like to have the land to just, so she can subdivide and build a house. She got engaged there on the land, and she likes to stay close to mom and dad. And, she had a great childhood, so she says. And just for future generations, she's a product of, we've all lived in Johnson City our whole life. It's a great place to be. And we've seen this growth that you all have discussed here tonight. Thank you for being a part of that and your service. And I just wish that you all would approve this.
Are there questions for you're really not public comment, you're really the applicant. Are there questions for the petitioner?
Did we do a traffic study?
Yes, please.
I don't know. How many times do you leave the house?
Did you?
I had to do that, I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
Traffic study.
Did you teach her to make pancakes?
Yeah.
That's my other question.
That's your job. I just mix the dough.
Okay.
Did
She
you
can-
teach her anything at Camp Explore?
I don't know if she learned.
Will you
Hopefully it was good if she did, so that was good.
Okay.
Now, you know, we have a pastor up here who can marry her on the property.
Hey, there we go, we're hunting one.
Yeah.
She, her dad is a pastor too, and she wants him to be a dad. So there we go.
All right.
All right, well, we wish you the best. Thank you. Are there other questions for the applicant, or?
She's gonna get this embarrassed.
At least you're outside of the camera shot, you know.
Oh, at least she is.
Yeah, exactly.
Not either.
So, anyone else? Otherwise, we'll close public hearing and look for the commission to make a motion.
So moved.
A motion to approve in a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll on second reading.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Okay, just one more reading and you're done.
But you know, I like this. It's good stuff.
Yeah, well, there you go. You can watch it at home on YouTube. Little did you know. Thank you. Thank you.
The good thing about it is that path going from where she's gonna live down at my house, to all my little grandkids.
Oh, my gosh, whoa.
And I
Get
mean,
on tree houses and
Yeah.
put zip lines and stuff.
Nice.
So her future husband's scared of heights, so he's a big old boy. So I-
A zip line doesn't have to be that high off the ground.
No,
Yeah.
good or something, hopefully.
That's right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
See you, have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Ordinance number 4798-21, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and amendatory thereof by changing from RP3 planned residential zoning to R4 medium-density residential zoning, property at 1503 Bryant Lane and at the end of Rydell Street. Ready for your consideration on second reading and public hearing.
Again, there actually do have some additional information with this one. We met with the developer and our staff, like a lot of different people from our staff, to talk about a second point of ingress and egress. As it was mentioned in the first reading, to get a kind of a fire lane to be used only in emergencies with a gate here at the back. So that's now shown on the plan, as well as where they're still doing the units. They also provided, so you can see how that fits into the current development of what that would look like. So that's one part of the project. The other part is this Rydell Lane that's over here to essentially take that in. They're both unnamed pieces of property that you are kind of in no man's land of ownership. They have ownership, but as far as tax parcel, it's a little difficult. Future land use is residential in this area. The only thing that on this currently, the only thing that could happen on this property would be a house. There is a single wide mobile home that's on it that will be removed because of the way the access is. So that would be the only, so if it is to develop, but this would be something that could be done. We've talked about the neighborhood meeting in the first reading. Staff and Planning Commission recommended approval. Any questions?
I think we have a public hearing on this one as well.
We do.
So are there any questions for Ms. Whitney before? Okay, thank you. We'll open the floor for public hearing on 4798-21. We'll close the public hearing and turn to the commission for action.
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Your next order of business is consider approval of a resolution authorizing the city to join the state of Tennessee and other local governments as participants in the Tennessee State Subdivision Opioid Abatement Agreement and approval of related settlement agreements. Sonny, I'm dependent on you for details, please, ma'am.
As you're all aware, there are a number of lawsuits that have been filed across the nation involving different distributors and parent companies. This is a suit that has been pursued federally by the Tennessee, among other states, our Tennessee Attorney General. There were bankruptcy proceedings that have been filed with the different distributors. In that, there were settlement agreements reached in those. There has been some additional action taken by multiple attorney generals with regard to those bankruptcy settlements to be able to have more flexibility whenever those funds are ultimately dispersed to the states. We have been asked by our Tennessee Attorney General to approve a resolution that consents to a Tennessee distribution plan for those potential funds that will be received. The state is looking for a critical mass of municipalities and cities and counties across the state to be able to join into this so that I think it can increase the amount of funding out of those settlements that come to the state. So the recommendation is that Johnson City approve the resolution to become a non-litigating part of that. By approving the resolution, it does ensure that we are eligible to receive funds. It's questionable if we are not a part of the resolution, pass the resolution to become one of the parties that's joining in this, then we would not be eligible to receive anything. And it doesn't, you're probably familiar, recall the Baby Doe case. Johnson City, as a part of Washington County, would be within that subset for whenever those funds would be received. That's not how this is structured. So to be a participating party, you have to be participating to be able to receive any of the funds.
Is there a liability associated with being associated at this point with the particular resolution?
No, Mayor, there's not. We are not accepting any liability or any obligations on the part of the city. We are just joining in with other municipalities across the state as adopting, recognizing that we are adopting the distribution plan as set forth by our Tennessee Attorney General.
So we're not becoming a party of the lawsuit or becoming a plaintiff or?
No, sir. We're identified as a non-litigating municipality.
And this has to be done by January 3rd, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we need to do it tonight.
Yes, sir.
Do it.
Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further deliberation? If not, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you.
Your next order of business is to consider approval of a resolution establishing a mobile food vendor policy, and this deals with food trucks and how they're inspected and the requirements for them to be approved. Chief?
Good afternoon, Commission, City staff, Mr. Peterson, Ms. Jennings. This is a result of a collaborative effort between many departments within the city with developmental services, legal, communications, marketing, fire prevention. We have had challenges over the years dealing with mobile food vendors. So what this is a process that we'll put in place that'll actually be very transparent for the vendors to be able to look at and receive that certification for that year, saying they have met the requirements set forth before them. They can see them prior to that event. And we want to really get transparent and have a process in place. This is the first step of this big plan we have, the major plan we have for all we do in fire prevention. Just to let you know, this is something that we have talked about for a couple of years. COVID changed things, it put us on a delay. Now we're there. And we have other agencies that are looking at this, other jurisdictions. Kingsport has reached out, Bristol has reached out, Morristown, several different fire chiefs have talked to me about this. They're wanting to see how this works for us. We are actually chartering this for them. And the ultimate goal is to eventually get to the point where everybody is on the same page. We're all using the same checkoff, the process as we're putting in place. And a vendor could be able to come to us, be inspected, then go to Kingsport, and they've already been inspected by us. Kingsport would be able to go over and spot check, make sure they have followed what they say they have followed, and move ahead. But this is the first step. So if there's any questions.
We appreciate the cooperation between the different departments and things to get this done, so thank you for doing that.
Yes, sir.
Are there questions for the chief? Is there a fee associated with it, and how would
Yes,
that
sir.
be? Is that also going to be equal between, is that the assumption that between cities, or how's that
What it
work?
is right now, we discussed this. Right now, Kingsport doesn't have a fee, I believe. I believe it's $140 initially, and then $40 annually. Ours will be just a set $50 rate annually. I equate it to going to get your tags for your vehicles. It's the same thing. It'll be dated by that. And that number will be associated with that vendor. The long-term goal is to have one fee. So if they came and paid a fee with us, or if they went to Bristol and paid a fee, that was the fee. We would not receive that at that point. It would just be, they'd be certified in all the jurisdictions. So, and that's the long-term goal. But right now, we'll be the first one setting this. I've been told Kingsport doesn't really have everything in place, such as this. They just mainly take the fee in, put it in a pot, and then just later deposit it. But this would actually go through the same permitting process as we already have in place.
It's like a business license.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you received comment from the other fire departments as to the actual document you all have developed? I mean, is there a comfort level that it could be uniformly adopted?
Yes, I've actually, Bristol has reached out to me and told me they were very interested in what we've presented. And the ones that I've spoke to in our chiefs meeting, they all want to get on board with this and basically use what we are using, because we are setting the standard for the other departments at this point.
And Chief, what are the food truck owners? What's their reaction to this?
The ones we have spoke to, they seem to be for this because of the fact it makes everything, as I said, transparent. It puts it on paper in front of them, so they have a flow chart basically they go through of how to get certified to be able to operate within the city.
Okay. So once they're certified, then they can go to any event in the city and not have to be inspected again on the spot?
What'll happen on that, it'll be a spot check that's coming up and saying, okay, yes, you have done this, you are still following this. We still want to check to make sure that just because you got certified in January, that you haven't changed your process later on in the year.
And this is a fire safety inspection.
Yes,
This does not replace the temporary food vendor
No, sir.
permit. I mean,
No,
there are
this
some
is-
other inspections.
This is the fire inspection of this, make sure they are following code as well as NFPA recommendations on this.
Move approval, if there's no
Second.
question.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If there's not, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank y'all for doing
Have a
that.
good evening.
Janet,
Yes.
in looking through this, it requires a City of Johnson City business license. Am I right in remembering that with the mobile food trucks, wherever a truck in Kingsport that has a Kingsport business license can come over here and sell goods without a business license from us,
Collect
and the
sales
sales
tax.
tax collections go back to Kingsport? In that example?
I believe you're correct,
Okay, I just,
as long as they have a Tennessee business license.
okay. Just glancing through that may be something you and the chief want to look at about the business license thing, just to make sure you got it all ironed out. Okay. Sorry, I should have caught that earlier, but,
No. And sometimes it has to do with where the business itself is domiciled.
right.
In fact, I think we should devote one of our vacant parking lots to free storage of food trucks that get their business permit in Johnson City.
Have a drive-through permit for them.
Next to Brush
Johnson
Creek.
City, sign them all up in
Yeah.
Johnson City.
Your next order of business is consider approval of creating a position within the city to be titled the Special Assistant to the U.S. Attorney General. If you'll recall, we have long funded a special assistant to the U.S. Attorney General that was supervised by the county and reported back through the Attorney General's office. And what's being proposed now would be to create a city position. Probably the significant financial impact is previously this position had no benefits. When you make it a city position, you're going to pick up the additional 25-30% benefit cost. And beyond that, I'll let you talk about responsibilities and chain of command and all those things, please, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. The police department has had a long-standing relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Tennessee. And as Mr. Peterson stated, We have had a special federal prosecutor who prosecuted cases that originated in Johnson City. That was the sole responsibility of the prosecutor that we had, and they were basically a contract employee. They were not an employee who had benefits. That employee, that attorney, prosecuted cases in federal court, mostly gun cases and drug cases, some other violent crime cases that originated in Johnson City. And really the benefit for us as an agency, having that special prosecutor allowed us to work with someone who could come out on the front end on some of these cases. If we're doing a search warrant, for example, they would review our search warrant. They may even come out on the scene for some of these things. Prosecutions in federal court are a little more complex than a lot of state court cases. There's a lot more writing, there's a lot more motions, suppression hearings, those type things that take up time to get the cases prosecuted. So we wanted to move forward with an employee who had benefits, and we've advertised that position, and we've interviewed some people who are interested in the position. It did give us the ability to certainly recruit a lot more applicants than we have in the past, and probably a lot more qualified applicants because of the fact that they knew that they would have, or we hope that they will have benefits from the city. So I think that it really helped in the candidate pool who's applied for that position.
So you will hire them, but
Yes,
then
sir.
they will become they will always be an employee of the city, but they'll be working under the authority of the U.S. Attorney?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And does the U.S. Attorney have any review or approval? How do they?
The person that we hire will have to, they'll have to pass a background check to be able to work for the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they will also, they have to practice and prosecute under the same rules that a U.S. Attorney would. It's just that they're dedicated strictly to Johnson City cases, but they will fall under all the guidelines of the U.S. Attorney's Office. And the U.S. Attorney's Office will help us in supervision of that employee as well, because they'll be spending a lot of time in Greenville in federal court.
You know, the U.S. Attorney used to have an office in Johnson City, but I don't think they do anymore. Is that true, or did they just move their Johnson City office?
Our special federal prosecutors worked out of the Greenville office.
Okay, so that would be the same relationship here. This person would go to work in Greenville most of the time?
Yes, Mayor. They will have some office space here at the police department where they can come and speak with especially our SIS officers who work drug cases, our criminal investigation division, and also our patrol officers who have cases that are the federal system that they pick up at the U.S. Attorney's Office.
And will you be the person supervisor as a official city person, or?
They'll fall under the police department. It'll be myself, and I've discussed with Ms. Sandos, and she has agreed to assist in the supervision because she is an attorney and she can help in that regard as well. So it's really going to be a collaborative effort with the U.S. Attorney's Office submitting some reports as well.
I move for approval.
Second. Motion and a second. Is there further discussion? We'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next order of business is consider approval to purchase a High Street Bridges Integration Platform. As we talked earlier today, this platform will allow us to take software packages that we use on a daily basis and communicate with our new Oracle software, and we would recommend your approval. This will be a 5-year contract at a annual cost of $75,840 a year.
Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? We'll call the roll. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next order of business is consider approval of a termination of a declaration of restrictions on a piece of property that we own in Boone's Creek. These current restrictions in place prohibit construction or operation of a gasoline/convenience product store. The property that we own in Boones Creek is Fire Station 6 there in the midst of the Young Farm. The Youngs placed this restriction on the property in the 90s, 98, and they have part of the property sold, and in order to get a closure, they're getting all of the property removed from those restrictions.
How's it
Staff-
zoned?
That's zone B4, I'm assuming. Yes.
That's you.
And
So
staff's
what was the,
recommendation?
just for
Okay.
thanks for waiting. What was the rationale for the restriction at the
That's my
time?
question right there.
All right, Chip, you're on the point, brother. Come on up here.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I'm going to enjoy torture my old buddy. Chip Young's one of the property owners, and I'll let him answer it. The logic behind placing the restrictions on that property to begin with.
Speak up, I can't hear either. What's the question?
Why were the restrictions placed on the property to begin with?
We sold that little front piece of property to Bill Lester, who was in the gas business. And he wanted that restriction on the property, and I don't understand really why the city has that on the property. Can you tell me why?
Oh, I see what
Sonny,
y'all
you
are
ready?
doing.
I'm
These guys have known
assuming
each other for a long
that
time.
when the restrictions were placed, it was placed on the whole 100 acres. And when we bought the fire station property,
Okay.
that restriction was a deed restriction in place.
Okay,
And if you want it released, if you want the deed restriction released, then your attorneys are telling us that they want it released on the whole 100 acres.
right, and we're working on the deed restrictions from the original purchase or sale.
But
So
but
that's what
it's,
we're working on, but we just want these lifted.
but that deed restriction was never anything the city sought. It was a restriction on the property when we
Seller.
bought it.
It was in place when we bought it. Yes,
That's
sir.
all I needed to know. Thank you.
Okay.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll call the roll. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
That brings you down to the end of your agenda for action items. In your informational items is your construction report for this period. I guess for my last manager's report, we've done hundreds of millions of dollars worth of projects, and we've probably built in excess of 250,000 square feet of school buildings, and gosh knows how many roads, and we've been able to make a huge difference in Johnson City. And I think we've done it with minimal aggravation and long-term problems and challenges. We've overcome a few, but it's been a real pleasure to have the opportunity to just be a small part of it. When I came back from Colorado with my mountain bike and my ponytail, looking for a summer job for a couple of months, I went up to Hermitage Manor and asked Jeff Begley for a job, and he said, I don't know, I don't need anybody. I did it about 3 times, and the last time I went up by there, I said, hey, Jeff, you let me work till lunchtime, and if I'm worth keeping, you give me a job, and if I'm not worth keeping, I'll leave and you don't owe me a penny. And we did that for a summer, and
Really? It took all summer before he decided to pay you?
He was thinking about it.
Or was there a comma in that sentence?
But, that led to the development specialist job, and when I came back from Colorado that summer, I had zero intention of staying in Johnson City. I was going back home to Colorado. So I guess the moral of that story is it's a damn good place to live, and I'm sure glad to be here. We'll be here and for many more years to come, I hope. So
Well,
thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We thank you. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Merry
Same.
Christmas to each of you. And are there individual commission reports or items to share? I'll start with you, Commissioner Hunter.
Well, just Merry Christmas to everybody, and, we had great weather for the Christmas parade and great turnout, and the tree lighting was a lot of fun. And the weather was a lot better for that than in years past as well.
That's right. Right.
But that's all.
Yeah, I just want to wish all the employees, and you addressed that tonight, Pete, what great employees we have here at the city. And hope everybody has unfortunately, Christmas Eve and Christmas has fallen on the weekend this year, so we don't get a whole lot of extra time, I don't guess. What's?
Friday and Monday.
Friday and Monday.
Friday,
Okay,
we're
so
off for Christmas Eve, and we'll celebrate the Christmas holiday on Monday. And then we'll celebrate the New Year's holiday the following Friday. So the week of the 26th, we will be closed on Monday and Friday and only open on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
So your last day is the 23rd?
My last day in the office will be the 23rd, and as I've told Kathy, if she needs something, just don't call before 9, and I'll be glad to come down and help.
Well, I hope everyone stays safe. We're still having an uptick now with, I guess, a new variant coming in. I've been watching the numbers over at Ballot, and everybody be careful, vax up, and, at least if you get it, you probably won't get so sick and won't have to go to the hospital. That's the big thing.
Vice Mayor?
We did have a CVB meeting this week, and they are very excited about their new facility that they're in and the downstairs and getting it started and going. And they gave us some great reports about all of the people who are getting to look at our 150-something trees that are all lit around the country and hearing about it, and some amazing numbers of people who have hit on different Facebook page announcements of it and gotten on Fox News, and New York City newspaper picked it up, and so it's been a hit. And I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but it seems like we're going to be putting a whole lot of trees in those parks for years to come. because
And
of this.
for the record, the Wise Property Solutions tree is beating Beacon Financial hands down for the best tree.
Well, and the
there.
wind had a lot to do with that.
Just get blown down.
But, yeah, it's exciting that we've got that many people interested in this, and they're taking advantage of the weather, that we're having to go walk at night and go through the trees and things. So that's been a great thing, especially with the weather not being cold and Christmas, like we at least get to see a bunch of Christmas trees at that point in time, so.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes, I'm very excited about tomorrow and helping 700 families here in our region with Christmas meals and food boxes. So tomorrow at 8:30, we'll be delivering food boxes to grandparent-led households, single-parent-led households. If you guys have time, please do stop by. Good Samaritan Ministries at 8:30 in the morning. We'll be glad to receive you to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you.
And if there's nothing else,
Right.
oh, Chief?
You have
I'm
a
sorry,
rep-
there's
See-
no
does
public hearing.
Does he have a traffic report on Santa? Is that he started?
No, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention, tonight is Shop with a Cop. And
Oh.
that program, we couldn't do it without the generosity of the community. There's a number of businesses who made contributions, whether it be in-kind or financial contributions, and also a great many members of just the general public who contributed to that. And so we're taking 71 children shopping tonight who might not otherwise enjoy Christmas. And we served over 150 children with presents and food baskets as well. But that's all possible because of the community and what they did. We also had volunteers from ETSU to a lot of businesses and a lot of law enforcement agencies in the region as well. So I just wanted to mention that. That's going on tonight. But our community is very giving, and I think they have really reached out and helped a lot of children. So we're just kind of a pass-through agency.
Thank you. And please convey our appreciation to your staff and the officers who came in on time. That was their time to be a part of this as well.
It takes a lot of planning and logistics to make that work, but thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll stand adjourned.
That's it, Maddie.
Thank you.